How much should you be walking every single day in order to have six-pack abs that last year-round? In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how you can calculate the exact number of steps you need to be walking in order to stay lean for life. First things first, I want you all to scroll all the way down to the description below this video and check out AI prompt number 2. Now this is a prompt that I developed about a year ago when I was just beginning to dabble into AI, and this specific prompt you can use with any AI out there, so ChatGPT, Gemini AI, Claude, whichever AI you decide to go with. This prompt will actually calculate the exact number of steps you need to start walking in order to burn an additional 500 calories per day. And why 500 calories? We'll get into that in a little bit. All I want you guys to do is take a look at that prompt and see that it is only going to request for you to enter your age, weight, height, and approximate body fat percentage. If you have that, that's totally optional. Once you enter that information in the prompt, that prompt is going to shoot out your exact number of steps that you should be walking at this moment in time, regardless if you're a newbie to fat loss or you're a newbie to daily walking in general. It's going to calculate the exact number of steps you need to start walking from today, especially after you finish watching this video. So if I had before discovering this AI prompt, I went through the ringer and walked 10,000 steps a day for 6 months, walked over 20,000 steps a day for actually 2 years, and then now, as of 2026, I'm walking 30,000 steps every single day. But had I discovered this prompt a lot sooner and followed it to the letter, like I'm expecting each and every one of you to follow this prompt, I would not have had to gone through that long, arduous journey of going from 10,000 to 20,000 to 30,000, and just based on my age, weight, and height, gender alone, I would have been able to get this custom step count created for me. So now that you have this step count created for you, that's going to be the exact number of steps that you should be striving to walk and hit by the end of each day. And this step count is going to give you an additional 500 calorie deficit, which means that this will allow you to, on average, burn 500 calories every single week. So 500 calories every single day, every single week. So that means 500 times 7 is 3,500. So this will allow you to burn an additional pound of weight every single week through walking alone. Now, walking is low intensity, steady state cardio, or LISS, right? It's barely cardio at all, right? Because it's barely going to get you into a zone 2 cardio state. It's not going to elevate your heart rate significantly. So as a result, when you burn calories through daily walking alone, especially if you're spacing your walks throughout the course of your day, walking is actually going to rely on your long-term energy stores, aka body fat. So whenever you walk, over time, walking is actually going to burn fat in order for it to generate energy to continuously sustain that movement, that low intensity steady state cardio. So walking, as opposed to other forms of cardio, high intensity cardio, actually prioritizes the burning of fat versus burning down quick energy sources like carbohydrates, which is typically what you encounter with high intensity cardio like running, swimming, bicycling, etc. So that's the first step. Now that you have the exact number of steps you need to walk every single day, I want you all to look at a meal plan. In fact, create your own meal plan. And these meals, these daily meals, should give you another 500 calorie deficit. How do you do that? Well, I want you to see where you see AI prompt number 2 in the video description. There should be a prompt directly above it called AI prompt number 1. Now, AI prompt number 1, I want you to only use to calculate your maintenance calories. And those maintenance calories are essentially the amount of calories you need to be eating through food in order to maintain your body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds today, if you eat at that maintenance calorie level that prompt is going to calculate for you, then it's going to allow you to maintain 200 pounds day after day, week after week, on average. The inputs for AI prompt number 1 are going to be your age, weight, height, and it's going to be a brief description of your current exercise routine, whether you're doing cardio, whether you're already lifting weights, and then it's also going to be a very brief high-level description of what you do on a day-to-day basis, your daily lifestyle. Or do you work outside? Or are you predominantly an office worker and you spend most of your time sitting down, pretty much sedentary like everyone else out there? So I just want you guys to provide a 1-sentence description for each of those questions in AI prompt number 1, and it's going to spit out your maintenance calories, basically the amount of calories that you should be consuming through food alone in order to maintain your body weight. It's also going to give you recommendations on how many calories to eat to lose weight and also to gain weight if you're really skinnier and you're trying to put on muscle. I would ignore those additional recommendations. All I want you to take away from AI prompt number 1 is the maintenance calories calculated. Once you get the maintenance calories, for example, maybe it spits out that your maintenance calories is 2,500, which means that if you eat 2,500 calories every single day, then you would be on average maintaining your current body weight. I want you to immediately subtract 500 from those recommended or from the calculated maintenance calories that you get back from prompt number 1. So if prompt number 1 gives you 2,500 as your maintenance calories, I want you to subtract 500, and that is going to be the amount of calories that you should be eating every single day while in a calorie deficit. A calorie deficit is going to be our number 1 weapon when it comes to fat loss, right? At a 500 calorie deficit, through eating our meals alone, we should be able to lose a pound of weight every single week, right? Once again, 500 calories times 7 is 3,500, and 3,500 calories roughly translates to 1 pound of weight. And in this case, 1 pound of weight that'll be lost just by eating in this deficit. Now, when it comes to a calorie deficit through meals, you're going to lose a combination of both fat and muscle. So if you're losing a pound of weight every single week, it's going to initially be more on the fat side, and also tons of water weight you're going to lose initially. So you're probably going to see of that pound of weight that you lose, you're going to lose about roughly 0.7 pounds due to fat and 0.3 pounds due to muscle. So you're going to lose 0.3 pounds of muscle and 0.7 pounds of fat initially. Eventually it's going to you're going to see some weeks it's going to be a 50-50 split between fat and muscle, and then sometimes in general, if you stick to a combination of a calorie deficit through your meals and a calorie deficit through your activity level, aka daily walking, the amount of fat that you or the amount of weight that you lose due to fat should outnumber and vastly dominate the amount of weight that you lose due to muscle. So now you have a double calorie deficit. You have a calorie deficit due to daily walking, and we are able to calculate that using AI prompt number 2. And then we have a calorie deficit now introduced through our meals from AI prompt number 1, right? So ideally, at the start of our fat loss journey, in our quest to attain and ultimately maintain six-pack abs year-round, we should be losing 2 pounds of weight every single week. Okay? 2 pounds, because we're in a 500 calorie deficit due to daily walking and a 500 calorie deficit due to our meals. So that's in all 1,000 calories. So 1,000 calorie deficit daily equates to 7,000 calories a week, and 7,000 calories a week is 2 pounds of weight every single week. Okay? Now, when it comes to your meals, I want you all to only 100% stick to single ingredient whole foods. Nothing that comes in a packet, nothing that comes in a box. Basically, produce, single ingredient foods, foods that only your grandparents would have eaten before in decades past. So I'm talking about things like sweet potatoes, berries, tropical fruits, rice, but make sure you weigh that rice, quinoa, and then plenty of animal meats. So chicken breast, ground beef, salmon, sardines. So only single ingredient whole foods, because chances are you have been eating tons of processed food, ultra processed food, for many years, which has unfortunately gotten you to this skinny, fat, or maybe obese body composition that you have today. So you're going to have to basically cut back on years of punishing your body due to eating large amounts of crappy food. So in order to reverse engineer or to fix the sins of years past, you're going to have to 100% cut out all the crap, cut out all the goofy shit from your diet, and only eat single ingredient whole foods. So here's some quick and easy recommendations. For your first meal of the day, non-fat plain Greek yogurt with berries and protein powder to give it an additional source of protein. That's number one. For meal number two, or for breakfast for most folks, it's going to be whole eggs, not egg whites, but whole eggs, sardines and or salmon, and then sweet potatoes and mixed vegetables. For lunch and dinner, maybe for lunch you could do chicken breast, boneless, skinless chicken breast, and with a side of sweet potatoes and vegetables. And then for dinner, or even for lunch, you can alternate. You can do lean ground beef, 91.9, 93.7, or even 96.4. And then, once again, with a side of sweet potatoes and mixed vegetables. So that will allow you to stick to your calorie deficit, and that will allow you to precisely track what you're putting into your mouth every single day. It's much easier for you to not only eat single ingredient whole foods, but to actually track them within MyFitnessPal. So I recommend every evening before going to sleep, entering your meals into MyFitnessPal so you know exactly what you have on tap for the next day. So if you're eating 2,000 calories as part of your calorie deficit, you want to put in 2,000 calories worth of single ingredient whole foods for each of your 3 to 4 meals. Next step, I want you to take the step count, or the recommended step count that was calculated from AI prompt number 2, and I want you to break it into about 4 mini goals. So if your overall step count is, for example, 20,000, it recommends that you walk 20,000 steps every single day based on your age, weight, height, and maybe your approximate body fat percentage. Then I want you to take that 20,000 steps and break it up into 4s. So essentially, I want you to be taking your larger step goal and breaking it up into small consumable chunks. So in this case, 20,000 divided by 4 is going to be 5,000. So you're going to be hitting 5,000 steps at each quarter of the day. So maybe by the first quarter of the day, or essentially before you take a shower, maybe you take an early morning walk before you decide to get shower, dress, and get ready for a work day, for example, 5,000 would be the number to hit at that point of the day. And then perhaps by lunchtime, you're going to try to hit the next 5,000 steps or 10,000. So essentially, you have a goal before going into work to hit 5,000 steps. By lunchtime, another 5,000 steps, and now you're at the halfway point, 10,000 steps. By mid-afternoon, you want to hit another 5,000 to get you to 15,000 steps, and then by the end of the day, but maybe you take an evening walk right after coming back from work, you want to be hitting your last 5,000 steps or 20,000 steps. So instead of just taking your main step goal for the day and trying to knock it out with 1 or 2 long ass walks, I highly recommend spacing your step count out in this, bite-sized consumable fashion, so that you spread your walking out throughout your day. Makes it a lot easier for you, number one. And then number two, it actually helps significantly with boosting your insulin sensitivity and nutrient partitioning throughout the day. You're actually timing your walks up around mealtime, ideally, right? So maybe that 5,000 steps will include that 10-minute post-meal walk after meal number one. Maybe your 10,000 step mark that you try to hit by lunchtime coincides with lunchtime. So by the time you are done with lunch and you do another 10-minute walk, now you're at 10,000 steps. So every time you walk after a meal, or every time you time your walks around mealtime, you're essentially boosting insulin sensitivity. That is a huge benefit of walking around mealtime, or in my case, you could just walk during a meal. So whether you're walking at mealtime or walking after a meal, you're ultimately decreasing your risk for developing insulin resistance as you get older. The more insulin resistant you become, unfortunately, your fasting blood glucose is going to stay perennially elevated. You're going to develop hyperinsulinemia, or you're going to have large concentrations of insulin in your blood, and ultimately that is what's going to lead to type 2 diabetes by the time you hit your mid-40s or early 50s. And in some cases, people are developing type 2 diabetes a lot earlier in life because they're not combating insulin resistance. And one of the best ways to combat insulin resistance, of course, following a single ingredient whole food diet, preferably a high protein diet, and then of course walking at mealtime or walking after meals. So that's why I highly recommend taking your main step goal and partitioning it off into 4 mini goals that are scattered throughout the day, ideally aligned with your meals. So that is the next step. So we have now made our step goal a lot more consumable on a day-to-day basis. So the next step is to make sure that we are building more muscle over time. And yes, it is actually possible to build muscle even during a calorie deficit, or at the very least maintain the amount of muscle that we currently have. So this is where I'm going to recommend each and every one of you to either go into the gym regularly every single week, or if you're a little unconscious, a little uncertain about, messing up in front of, total strangers your first time in the gym, as I was back in 2024, then I would recommend investing in a pair of adjustable dumbbells. What I invested in early on in my fitness journey were the Bowflex dumbbells. I think I have a link for that in the description below. So you can actually go for these adjustable dumbbells. I think they go from 5 pounds all the way up to 50 pounds, adjustable once again. And what I would recommend is progressively overloading on the amount of weight that you lift. So I want you to develop your own total body workout. Number one, do a total body workout 3 days a week. This total body workout should include exercises that target all 6 muscle groups. So chest, abdomen, back, arms, legs, and shoulders. What I typically like to do is chest fly and a bench press for the chest. I like to do a seated row and a pull-up for the back, abdominal crunch for the abs, and of course the pull-ups are also good for abs as well. A leg press for legs, or you can do squats with the dumbbells, and then overhead shoulder press and lateral raises for the shoulders, and then a tricep press or tricep extension and a bicep curl for the arms. So you should have anywhere from 10 to 12 exercises in all that should be targeting all 6 muscle groups, and these exercises should be a combination of compound and isolation movements. Okay? And compound movements are going to target multiple muscle groups at the same time. And the isolation movements are usually going to be good for a single muscle group, and they're good for like toning, providing increased tone, and kind of also doing more so than hypertrophy training is more for strength training. When you do a specific isolation exercise like bicep curls, for example. Do this entire total body workout 3 days a week. And even if you're not going into the gym, start off at an at-home workout with these adjustable dumbbells. Once you get used to carrying out each of these exercises, starting off at 5 pounds or even 10 pounds, what I want you guys to do is just do 2 sets of 10 reps the first week. Then the second week, I want you to increase 1 rep across each exercise. So level up to 2 sets of 11 reps. Then the third week, I want you to do 2 sets of 12 reps. Then once you basically exercise at that particular weight across all 6 muscle groups, across your 10 to 12 exercises, then that's where I want you to increase by 5 to 10 pounds. Increase by 5 pounds on isolation movements and 10 pounds on compound exercises like the bench press, for example, or the overhead shoulder press, for example. That's a compound exercise. So when you increase weights, you want to wait at least 3 weeks before you increase a weight. When you increase reps, you just increase them every single week. And if you have more questions about which exercises to do, especially for those of you who are ready to go to the gym, let me know and I can create a video specific for that. So resistance training is the next step in order for you to continuously lose weight and prioritize losing fat over time. I want you all to continue in this calorie deficit until you hit at least 10%. And this goes for those of you who are brand new, who are doing your very first calorie deficit. Okay? I want you to stick to that recommended calorie level through your meals throughout the duration of your calorie deficit. So if AI prompt number 1 comes back at 2,500 calories, that being your maintenance calories, subtract 500 from that, eat at 2,000 calories for the entirety of your calorie deficit. Don't even attempt to slash calories if your weight doesn't move. And by the way, I want you all to weigh yourself first thing in the morning and then track your weight on a weekly basis. There are going to be fluctuations in your weight from day to day. I don't want you to worry about that. That's usually due to water retention and basically you losing a lot of water weight throughout the week. So because of that, you're going to see the scale go up and down throughout the course of a week. But on a weekly basis, I want you to look at the average, right? Are you in general trending downward, or are you at the same weight? And if you remain at the same weight, I don't want you to get alarmed by that either. It's perfectly fine, especially as you progress further along in your calorie deficit, to be stuck at a particular weight. That's because you're also, especially if it's your very first calorie deficit, you're going to be putting on muscle mass after going into the gym or even doing at-home total body workouts. So your weight is going to seesaw between gaining muscle and losing fat. So as a result, some weeks you might not see the weight change at all. Maybe at the start of your journey, your fat loss journey or your calorie deficit, you're losing 2 pounds a week. Within a couple of weeks, that's going to trend down. You're going to start to only lose a pound, and that fat is going to start coming off a lot more slowly. So maybe you're losing a pound of fat every single week. Every single week afterwards, that's going to decrease gradually. So from a pound of fat lost a week, it's going to go down to 0.8 pounds, to 0.6, 0.4, and then you're going to reach a point in your calorie deficit where you might not lose any fat at all during the week. In that case, I want you all to not get worried at all by the number you're seeing on the weight scale, and just stick to the process. Do not slash calories. Stay at your calorie deficit. Instead, I want you all to increase your step count every single month, and I want you to wait a month before you even try doing this. At the end of the month, I want you to increase your daily step count to 1,000. So if AI prompt number 2 recommends that you walk 20,000 steps every single month in order to burn an additional 500 calories, at the end of that first month, I want you to increase your steps to 21,000 steps, right? Increase it by just 1,000. And 1,000 steps is just 10 extra minutes of walking. That's it. You just add an activity that would just take you 10 minutes to complete while you're walking around, like a phone call. Like a phone call, maybe scrolling on social media, maybe responding to emails at work. Just do that again for 10 additional minutes every single month. So every single month, instead of slashing your calories by 100, I want you to instead add 1,000 additional steps. So that way you continue to eat at your calorie deficit level. So in that case, if your maintenance calories is 2,500, you're eating at 2,000 calories. And when you stop seeing that weight change on your weight scale, I want you to, instead of decreasing from 2,000 to 1,900 or 1,800, keep it at 2,000 and instead increase your step count by 1,000 to 21,000, for example, to 22,000, and keep going. And automatically that weight on the scale is going to start to decrease again. And for those of you all that own a body fat scale, you're going to also see your body fat percentage start to go down, because now, thanks to walking, which prioritizes fat loss and prioritizes burning of fat for energy as opposed to burning of carbs for quick energy bursts, you're going to see your body fat percentage start to trickle downward, and then that is going to then register on the weight scale. Then you're going to start to see your calorie deficit progress further. It's going to be slow. Fat loss is a slow, arduous, time-consuming process. So by no means necessary should you ever place a deadline on yourself to reach a specific body fat percentage. And as I recommend, 10% is basically when you're going to finally see that lower belly fat, that lower back fat, those love handles finally be eliminated and disappear from your body. You're finally going to be able to see multiple rows of your rectus abdominis muscle. If you're lucky, 3 rows, or at, very popular, very well desired 6-pack abs. You're going to be able to see etched across your abdomen. So if you have a Fit Index body fat scale or a Renpho body fat scale, you will get an approximate body fat percentage that you can follow throughout your calorie deficit. Once you reach 10% body fat, if you're using a body fat scale, then I want you to go and get a DEXA scan in order to confirm your body fat percentage. There's always a margin of error in any of these at-home body fat scales. In general, they give you a good approximation to follow, right, on a day-to-day basis. So if that scale says 10%, more than likely it might be a little higher than that, like 12%. So the DEXA scan is going to be the gold standard for determining your actual body fat percentage. So go out, get a DEXA scan. It's a little on the pricey side, so that's why you want to wait until the end of your calorie deficit to determine whether or not you're ready to get a DEXA to confirm. And more than likely, you're going to see visual evidence of your 6-pack abs once you're at 10%, number one. And then you're also going to see a significant decrease in your waist circumference. So definitely take some waist measurements throughout your calorie deficit as well. Usually for men at 10% body fat, or when you actually have your 6-pack abs appearing for the first time ever, your waist should be around 29, 28 inches. So that's going to be another indication that you are basically at the end of your calorie deficit, and now you can go ahead and double check it with a DEXA scan. So follow all these steps one after the other in order to achieve six-pack abs, and you only have to do this one time. Once you achieve your ideal body fat percentage and you finally have six-pack abs, you never have to do another calorie deficit again. Don't even bother to do a lean bulk in order to put on muscle. Just now bump up your calories through your meals by 500 again, and eat at maintenance calories while progressively overloading in the gym and progressively overloading on your step count over time. Just walk, baby.